People have been talking about their story of 9/11 and where they were at and what their reaction was and how they were feeling. But me, I wasn't there because I wasn't born yet. 9/11 happened in September 11th, 2001, and I was born in April 12th, 2005. But my parents were there, so I'm going to tell you their story of where they were at 9/11. September 11th, 2001, my parents were not married yet. They were engaged, and my dad was working. He was actually in New York City when that happened. So he was on his lunch break getting something from a cafe, and the person said, "Hey, a plane just attacked the World Trade Center building." And Dad was like, "What?" So he picks up his lunch and he goes, this is where he was standing, where the World Trade Center was and where the Freedom Tower is today. And this is somewhere my dad was when he was seeing all this happen. When my dad saw the World Trade Center, he was in complete shock. He could not believe what the hell was going on. So he would just stand there, pick up his lunch, and then start eating it as he was watching one of the towers burn. And he couldn't believe it. He was in complete shock. And then, from where my dad was seeing, the building was burning down, and then to his right there was another plane. And my dad's just looking at and just notices a plane, and he's like, "Why is there another plane flying down low?" And then he just watches the plane go flying down low, 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 and low. Until then, it hits another building. And my dad just saw it happen, and all of a sudden, he feels the shockwave of the explosion of the second plane hitting the second World Trade Center building. And my dad is like, "What the hell just happened?" And then there was an Italian guy next to him that just said, "That's a terrorist attack." Because before, everybody thought it was just an accident. And that would be so rare of two planes crashing into something almost the exact same spot, especially the two buildings directly to them. And there would be no way that would be an accident. So my dad decided to finish his lunch. My dad was thinking about going to get one of the tools he left in one of these buildings somewhere, nowhere near the World Trade Center. But my dad was so scared there could have been a third plane hitting the building where he was at, and he could have died. Because if there was going to be two planes hitting the building, everybody was scared. If there was going to be another plane and everybody was running away, everybody was leaving New York City. So that my dad said, "Screw it, I'll get the tools tomorrow. I'm leaving. I'm not dying." So he finds a parking lot and get the hell out of New York City. He finds the parking lot where he parked his van, and he gets in it and he drives off. This whole time when my dad was driving home to where my mom was at, he was driving, he was crying his eyes out. There was two things that was bothering him. One, my dad had a daughter before me and my sister and Willow. And by the time she was like she's my half sister, and when this was happening, she was almost 2 years old, and there'd be times, my dad would fly to Texas and to New York City with his daughter Jordan, and it would suck so bad that he would have to tell her that everything is gonna be alright, knowing that they're both going to die, and that's what screwed him up. Another thing that was bothering him, speaking that him and my mom were engaged, he was thinking, I'm gonna marry this woman, and I'm gonna have children with her, and we're gonna bring them into such a screwed up world, because everybody was scared that nobody knew what happened. Nobody knew what the hell was gonna happen to us. And all that time when he was listening to the radio, at some point when he was listening to the radio as he was driving on his way home, the second tower that got hit crumbles, falls down. And now, my mom's side of the story. My mom was in her car, and she heard something on the radio, and she's listening that there has been a plane that hit a World Trade Center building. And at that point, my mom was like, really? She thought it was a joke. She thought it was a prank. She thought it was just some sick joke. Because you're not allowed to fly a plane low in New York City with buildings that tall. So if you're gonna fly over New York City, you have to fly way, 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 way above the buildings. Like, probably above the clouds if you have to. So, and another reason, and the reason why, another reason why she thought it was a prank, because there was one guy that once flew around New York City on a plane. We don't know how big the plane was, but there was this one guy that got in trouble for flying low around the buildings in New York City, and he was being an idiot, and he got in trouble. And my mom's like, why the hell would there be a plane flying low in New York City and then crashing into the towers? So she just ignored it, and she drove home, and she went to her, I guess they were in an apartment, and then at some point my mom turned on the television, and there's the news. She sees on the news that one of the twin towers were smoking and caught on fire.
Are we talking about the one that's westernmost?
Let's see. Yes, sir.
Did you hear the explosion from
yes.
your position?
Yes, we did.
And my mom was in complete shock, and my mom was so depressed on watching that. At one point, she saw another explosion on the second building, and the people on the news were talking that, oh my god, another plane hit the World Trade Center.
So you have no idea right now?
There's another one. Another plane just hit. Right? Oh my god, another plane has just hit. It hit another building. Flew right into the middle of it. Explosion. My god, it's right in the middle of the building.
This went into the East Tower?
Yes.
And then my mom was just crying her eyes out. She was crying her eyes out. She was so scared. It was so depressing. It didn't feel real. It felt like a living nightmare. She thought it was just some sick joke. And at that point, my mom knew that my dad was working and had this job around in New York City, so she was scared. So she starts calling my dad, and then she tries to call him. No answer, because the telephone lines were screwed up when the World Trade Center's been hit. So my mom is so scared. She's scared that something had happened to my dad. I also forgot to mention that there was a post office near the World Trade Centers, and there was thousands of zip codes in the post office. And once to 2 towers fall, all 3 other towers crumble down too, and all those zip codes disappeared. And at some point, there was a knock on the door. She opens it, and it's Dad, and then she gives him a big hug, crying her eyes out. Oh, thank God you're here. Thank God you're all right. And then my dad looks over my mom's shoulder, and they both saw the first tower that got hit fall after the second tower fell down. And that's my mom and dad's 9/11 story 20 years ago. Then later, almost a year later, my mom and dad got married on August 31st, 2002. And then on April 12th, 2005, they had me. And then on February 11th, 2008, they had my sister Lauren. Then on January 4th, 2012, they had Willow, but she didn't make it, and that's all I'll say about her.